Anyway, we got Randy Chance with us today, and Randy's the person that I call when I can't get you on the phone to BS, and Randy is about as intelligent of a person that I know, other than you and maybe Rico, our doctor, and maybe Jim Cameron. His knowledge of history, his knowledge of religion, his knowledge of philosophy, and most of all, his knowledge of music. And I know you can't see him, Jim, but he's about our age. So if you have any questions about,
I actually looked at a couple of YouTube clips of Randy yesterday.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
My condolences.
No, I read his IMDb page and everything. And I was telling Michael just a day or two ago when we knew you were going to be on the show that if I had maybe had two fantasies that I could have lived, one might have been to pitch a perfect game in the World Series like Don Larson, and the other would be to play guitar like Jimi Hendrix or Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton, or one of those, gods of guitar that I kind of grew up listening to. And I couldn't, if you put a guitar in my hand, I couldn't play two notes that went together. But I love hearing guitarists talk about their work. I loved Keith Richards' book, Life, when he talked about, for him, a real eye-opener was when he came upon something, I think he called it 5-string open G tuning. I had no idea what he's talking about, but it was fascinating to hear him discourse on the subject nonetheless. So I'm looking forward to this.
Well, if you had a body, I would give you a guitar lesson.
Yeah, really.
If you imagine,
give me an air guitar lesson.
Okay, all right. If you happen to grab a hold of a body somewhere along the line, I'll give you an actual guitar lesson somewhere along the line. But yeah, the 5-string G thing is simply when you're playing in G tuning, the 5th string is the root, is the lowest pitch note, and sometimes the string below that, the E string, can get into it can get in the way when you're playing. So some people. To me, it seems like an act of incredible stupidity that you just can't play. You can't avoid playing that lowest pitch note. But some people have so much trouble, they just take off the lowest string. So when they're playing in G tuning, they don't have to worry about hitting anything except the strings that were meant to be hit. So that having been said, I mean, I think it's kind of a silly idea. They actually came out with a 5-string guitar a number of years ago, so you could just play in G tuning without having to worry about hitting that lower string.
Right.
You can tell I don't have a lot of respect for it, but I love playing in G tuning though. It's really great.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's very, very earthy and very. You really feel like you're sitting on the porch in the Mississippi Delta with your dog.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah, it's got a very, very earthy kind of.
I saw something last night on the news. I was just like going by and like 60 Minutes, and when I was watching football, and then during the commercials, I'd like flip around and see what else is on. It was 60 Minutes, and 60 Minutes was doing a piece on musicians in Louisiana. I think.
Oh, really?
It's called. I don't know if it's xylophone. I don't know what it's called.
Zidico.
Zydeco. What is Zydeco, Randy?
Well, it's interesting because I was forced to play the accordion at age 6 at gunpoint by my parents.
Yes.
And, of course, I had us play all these old Swedish songs because my parents were born in Sweden. But Zydeco is a very hip way of playing the accordion. It isn't only the accordion. But a long time ago, you had certain Frenchmen coming down to the Mississippi Delta. That area, New Orleans, was a very French area for a long time, way back in the old days. You still have that French Quarter. And they brought their accordions with. The accordion is kind of like cheese. Everybody does it, but they all do it in a different way. The Germans have one way of playing the accordion. And the people down in the Louisiana Bayou developed this kind of semi-French, semi-Afro-American method of playing the accordion. And it isn't just the accordion. They play a lot of slide guitar.
Yeah.
And you can use drums and bass. It's a certain kind of, it's almost like halfway between blues and reggae in a way. It has
Yeah,
a very
it has a
strange,
Caribbean sound.
yeah,
almost.
you have a lot
Yeah.
of influences down there.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
and a lot of different types of music too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I just thought it was interesting because 60 Minutes did a show about it as if it was sort of becoming popular again or becoming popular. And they had a washboard, they had violins, and I couldn't hear the music very well, but I thought it was interesting because it's kind of a form of music that I've heard. What did you say call it? Zydeco?
Zydeco.
What is it? Why? Do you know where that comes from, Randy?
Actually, no. I think it's a permutation of some French word or something.
Yeah.
I think there was a Zydeco song 20 or 30 years ago that kind of hit mainstream called "Don't Mess with My Toot Toot." Do you remember that song?
Yeah, and there have been a couple other things with kind of a Zydeco feel to it. I'm trying to think of this guy's name. He's an unbelievable slide guitar player. He plays a lot of Zydeco type stuff. He's a white guy from the Louisiana Bayou, but I'll think of his name in a minute. But anyway, you know, on a certain level, there's like everything's becoming popular.
Yes.
You know, because it's like there's an everything revival at once, you know, because of the internet and the social media and all that
true.
stuff.
That's true.
But it's great that people are finding out more and more of different types of roots music and earthy, you know, like where the music goes back to.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a kid, I mean, when I was about 16, they finally put all of Robert Johnson's singles into one album.
Yeah.
Before that, you know, he was just like this legendary name that you couldn't even get his records anywhere, you know. In fact, Elvis, I mean, the Sun Sessions that he did before he signed with RCA and really became a giant star, those early records are in my opinion, some of his best music. And until the early 70s, you had to go looking for them in record stores. Then they finally put the whole thing into an album, you know. But now, you know, you just type in a name on YouTube and
you got it.
Anything. Yeah, you never know what's going to come up.
you get Randy Chance videos. Yeah.
Yeah, even him. Even mine. But, you know, and I was also going to say that Zydeco is kind of similar. It's kind of connected to jug band music.
Right.
You were talking about the washboard.
Yes. Yeah.
And a lot, you know, jug band was like a kind of jazz. It was really popular in the 20s, especially, and in the 60s. I mean, the Lovin Spoonful was really a kind of electric jug band on a certain level. That's really how they started.
I was reading about them last night.
Yeah.
And that was very much part of their founding.
Yeah. They were part of that blues thing in the same way that the Stones and a bunch of bands wanted to get into like Chicago blues, for instance.
But Keith Richards talks in his book about how when the Stones first started, they were a Chicago blues band.
Yeah.
And they kind of got pushed by their manager into writing their own music.
Yeah.
But they were content just to play Chicago blues.
Yeah. You know, that was a really big thing in London at that time among young people. I'll tell you an amazing story. I grew up in Chicago. I was born and raised in Chicago. And I had no older brothers and sisters. My parents were old enough to be my grandparents, and they were born in Sweden. So needless to say, I wasn't very hip, really. But, you know, I was playing guitar at 10, and the Beatles came out, and then all of a sudden it was really easy to find people who wanted to be in a band. Everybody suddenly went. So, you know,
who didn't want to be in a band?
Yeah, so we had our first band. We were like 14. And Ronnie, the bass player, came over with the Rolling Stones album. They were brand new, right? They had just burst upon the scene. And on the back it said, recorded in London, Hollywood, and Chicago. And I thought, well, London and Hollywood are special exotic places. Chicago's a hole in the ground. I mean, I'm from Chicago. How could Chicago possibly
about that?
because I didn't know that there was this amazing blues scene in Chicago. And there was a song on that album called 2120 South Michigan Avenue. And I immediately recognized that as a Chicago address.
Yes.
So a few days later, I was downtown and I got on the bus. I had to find out what was down there. And it was the home of Chess Records.
Oh, wow.
You know, where all the black, including Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley, some of the rockers recorded there too. But it was like the home of Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, you know, Etta James, all those guys. And the very first thing I thought was, when I saw that, sitting there on the bus, I thought all those guys recorded down in the Mississippi Delta.
Yeah,
and it was
Muscle Shoals down in that area.
well, Muscle Shoals. Yeah, well, that's a little different
That's
scene,
a
but
little, yeah.
and so it literally was the first time in my life that I was proud to be from Chicago. And there were many times after that where I'd be playing guitar and people would say, "Wow, you sure sound like you're from Chicago." And I would think, I'm trying to sound like Keith Richards and Eric Clapton.
Right.
I thought that was English.
Well, they're trying to sound like Chicago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, there are bars in Chicago. When I was a kid, you'd walk down the street, and there would be pictures outside the bar that would be like Howlin'
Yeah.
Wolf on stage with Keith Richards and Charlie Watts playing drums, and they love to sit in with those guys.
Yeah, they no.
Yeah.
How I don't know what the word is. Influential was Little Richard.
Well, I was.
I know I'm just like I'm going
just
right
kind of
to
in
a different. I'm going right to a different.
Well, Little Richard was one of the earliest rockers. He was the first person, I mean, not the first, but I mean, he was really kind of Ray Charles, even before him, was the one who was really became known for putting church music in the bar.
Okay.
Basically, you took gospel music and you gave it pornographic lyrics and sang it in the bar, and people rioted, which is both good and bad.
Yes,
But then you had what they called Black on Saturday Night, which is white kids who went crazy over black music, and they would let them in, usually up in the balcony. So they could. I mean,
the white kids up in the balcony?
It was segregated. And they would be watching the black kids dancing very suggestively, more than they could ever imagine.
Yes, of
and
course.
the black people were playing their music up on stage. And Little Richard came out of that same thing. But he was really, shall we say, aggressive. I mean, he was wild, I mean, and a lot of that came from the church. People would do this holy roller stuff, gospel stuff on Sunday morning. Kind of getting into a trance, singing this gospel music, and they brought that into into the bars on Saturday night.
Yeah. I've heard him talk about all the people that he feels that he helped bring along, including I think the Beatles. And Jimi Hendrix, and said Jimi Hendrix played with him, and he named like 5 or 6 different people and or groups or bands that were kind of fronted for him, or like
you might be thinking of James Brown also.
No, well,
yeah.
This is him talking about himself. Okay,
Little Richard.
So this might have a little bit of a Little Richard tint to it. I got them all started. It wouldn't have been for me. It wouldn't have been no Beatles.
Right. Well, Little Richard was, a tireless self-promoter.
Okay.
Never stopped advertising himself.
Okay.
But I mean, he was out there doing really, really raunchy music really early. I mean, you could say that he even influenced Elvis. The thing about Elvis was that he grew up in a neighborhood that was so poor, especially when his father had to go to jail for a few years. He ended up in a neighborhood that it was really the poorest neighborhood you could be in and still be white.
Wow. Wow.
The only neighborhood would be poor would be black. And he'd go to the swimming hall, play hooky, and there'd be black kids and white kids swimming in the stream with him. And
Elvis, you're talking about.
Yeah. And, he could go to, the white church and listen to their music, the black church and listen to their music, sit outside the white bar and listen to their honky-tonk country, and sit outside the black bar and listen to their blues and R&B, He really was an American, kind of a Huck Finn character.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that, that took, he wasn't the only white boy playing that music, but he had an amazing voice, really. And
when did you start playing guitar, 10, you just said it, but I've already forgotten it.
Yeah, just after the fall of the Roman Empire.
Sometime around the time guitars were invented.
yeah, right.
Speaking of that, first of all, and I know people can Wikipedia this or whatever, but I want to hear it from you. Like, when was the first electric guitar?
Yeah.
What years was that kind of like?
Yeah, my friend and I were just arguing about that yesterday. Les Paul, who is also a tireless self-promoter.
Oh, yeah.
Never stopped bragging about. He claimed he invented the electric guitar, the electric pickup. None of that's true. I mean, there were mass-produced solid-body guitars 3 years before the Les Paul came out. But I mean, he certainly was a pioneer, you know. If you go way back to the late 20s, early 30s, there's always been this dispute between the Rickenbacker family, which built Rickenbacker guitars. Now, John Lennon played a Rickenbacker guitar. Tom Petty played a Rickenbacker guitar. I mean, they're up there with the great guitars, you know, with Fender and Gibson and stuff. But they go way, way, way back. And Adolf Rickenbacker, who started the company, claims to have invented the electric pickup. And the Dopey-Era brothers, there's a name for you.
The Dopey who brothers?
The Dopey-Era brothers, yeah.
Dopey-Era. Dopey-Era.
Yeah, when you
You're
see...
a dopey, yeah.
I know, you could go on forever with
one-liners.
Yeah.
On that one
they were immigrants from Eastern Europe, from like Lithuania or something like that. Three brothers came over here. When you see a guitar with that metal resonator, that round metal resonator, that's a dobro. And the word dobro comes from the Dopey-Era brothers. They invented the metal resonator, which was a whole other thing in itself. It made the guitar louder and mid-rangier, and it gives it a completely different kind of sound. They were credited for having invented the dobro, the resonator guitar.
Okay.
And one of the brothers worked for the Rickenbackers at one point and then joined his brothers, and they continued to work with their guitar company. And ever since, the Rickenbackers have claimed that the Dopey-Era brothers stole ideas from them.
Right.
And it's been a feud ever since like 1928, literally. It'll probably never be so. But both of them claim to have invented the electric pickup. Now, when you say
the electric, when you say pickup,
yeah,
what does that mean as compared to a guitar?
Right. Okay. So you have a guitar. The pickups are those things underneath the strings on the body of the guitar that actually pick up the sound.
Okay.
So when the string vibrates, you know, a steel string vibrates, it makes a magnetic field. And the electric pickup of the guitar is literally like a magnet that, in a sense, I mean, it's totally analog. It's not digital. But I mean, in a sense, it reproduces the sound of that vibration and turns it into an electric signal, and then the amp turns it back into sound by vibrating, the speakers vibrating. So the pickup is actually the part of the guitar that picks up the sound of the strings and sends it to the amplifier so it can be amplified, made louder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did they have pickups before they had amplifiers?
No. They had microphones. They had very primitive microphones and amplifiers for singing, for PA, and also those very early, you know, like those cylinder recorders.
Yes, yeah.
And then they didn't have tape recorders before the electric guitar. The tape recorder was invented literally during the Second World War.
The tape recorder?
The tape recorder was invented during the Second World War. It was actually invented by the Nazis. It's pretty weird. Yeah, it's very...
Not surprised.
I met the guy and talked with him for hours at an Audio Engineering Society convention. His name is Jack Smalley. He was a soldier in World War II, and he was a communications expert. You know, before he had become a soldier, he was fighting the Nazis. They went into this bombed-out bunker, and he found these two weird devices. And he took them apart and labeled everything and sent them to his wife in San Francisco.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, this is an amazing story. And he came back to his wife after the war ended, put those things back together again, and figured out that they were tape recorders, that they recorded sound with magnetic tape. And the Nazis, Hitler had said to his people, invent a device that will allow me to give speeches and you can reproduce them later, but they won't have any surface noise. When you play a record, a phonograph record, you can tell that it's a record.
Yeah.
And he didn't want anyone to know. Jack Smalley said to me, we were listening to like Wagner symphonies at 3 o'clock in the morning. And we were thinking, how did Hitler get an orchestra to play a Wagner symphony, at 3 o'clock in the morning? They were listening to tape recorders and they didn't know it. That was what Hitler wanted.
Oh.
He wanted to be able to give speeches and they wouldn't bomb the place immediately. He could give a speech from one place and be in another place.
Right.
And they could bomb the living daylights out of the one place and he'd be someplace else. That was his original idea. And it worked for a while.
Right.
And then Smalley sold the plans to Ampeg for he hired himself on as a technical advisor and made a fortune.
Hitler?
Yeah. No. No, you got me. Let's see. What would Hitler be a technical advisor for? I don't even want to think about that. But Smalley was an amazing guy. And the first person who took a chance on the tape recorder to actually record with it was Bing Crosby for his radio show. Because they could edit real quickly. People were afraid to use the tape recorder because they thought it would break down.
Uh-huh.
It was so new. They kept recording on phonograph, on lathes and discs. I kind of got a little bit off the subject, but it's all part of the same thing.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. It's all fascinating.
Yeah, Les Paul was the first person who really made use of the tape recorder. He was the first person to record like slowing down guitar tracks and speeding them up. And
Les Paul?
Yeah, Les Paul. He was doing that way back in like 51.
Yeah.
He had an 8-channel tape recorder in the mid 50s.
Wow.
The Beatles did Sgt. Pepper on 4-track.
Yeah.
10 years later, they obviously had the state-of-the-art gear, but they were only using 4-track equipment when they did Sgt. Pepper, and Les Paul was using 8-track equipment 10 years earlier. He was really amazing when it comes to recording studio techniques and production. Even more amazing than the guitar. The electric guitar would have gotten invented anyway.
Yeah.
But that was another thing that people hated. The guitar players like Django Reinhardt, like early jazz players, they hated
the electric guitar.
Yeah,
right?
because it didn't sound like a real guitar to them.
Right.
And also they would feed back and squeal and squawk and cause all these problems.
Right.
Of course, Jimi Hendrix turned that into an art form.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Listen to this thing. Feedback, squeal and squawk at ear-shattering volumes.
Right. Yeah. That's Jimi Hendrix, huh?
Yeah, John Lennon was the first person ever to use feedback in a guitar in a record, though.
What record was
What would that have been?
You know?
Would that have been on Revolver?
I think it's 8 days. No, it was even before that. I think it was 8 days a week. They start out with this. It almost doesn't even really. It goes like chung. And then they go dun, da, 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 da. Yeah.
Oh, I need
that's actually
your
John
love,
Lennon.
babe.
Yeah. That's Lennon feeding back a guitar deliberately for the first time in history. Yeah, isn't that cool?
Do you remember where you were the first time you heard the Beatles?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
I was in Sweden in the summer of *63. We were visiting relatives. And there was this one radio station.
Had you heard about them yet?
No.
Okay.
No. This was the summer of '63.
Right.
Beatlemania didn't start in America until February of '64.
Okay.
Ed Sullivan. I remember where I was.
Yeah. Most people heard them on Ed Sullivan. Yeah. Beatlemania hit Sweden in fall of '63. So nobody in Sweden knew who he was either.
Okay.
But this was this one radio station called Radio Luxembourg, your station to the stars. And it arrived out of Luxembourg. And you could only get it after like 10 o'clock at night or something. And they just played everything. They played Frank Sinatra,
Yeah.
And they played Elvis and Roy Orbison and the Everly Brothers and the Chuck Berry. And they also played these English rock stars like Tommy Steele and Cliff
My mother,
Richards.
when I was a when I was a kid, my mother bought for me and my brother an album called Frank Ifield Meets the Beatles. It was kind of have you ever heard of Frank Ifield?
Vaguely,
Yeah, he had like
somewhere.
one hit. Yeah, I Remember You, it was called. And yet the record company thought, oh, we'll patch him together with the Beatles. So they took some, previously recorded Beatles stuff and put it together with this. And my mother brought that album home and we went, Mom, what is this thing?
Yeah,
And we
wow.
never listened to it. 30 years later, I sold it for like $500 because it was a
Wow.
collector's item and we never
Wow.
played it. We
That's
never played it.
amazing. Well,
Yeah.
if you would have played it, you wouldn't have gotten as much money for it as a collector's item
No,
because the
huh?
grooves would have been
We
worn
didn't.
out.
Oh yeah, exactly. We didn't play it
When
'cause
you
we
heard
had
when you
Beatles albums.
when you first heard the Beatles, what did you hear? Was it like their
I kind of, well, I I heard
and
Love.
was it like something like what, like did you say to yourself at that time, wow, this is I've not heard this before.
Well, the first thing was like, it was kind of like taking a picture of Big Ben. You know, it was like, oh, this is a rock star. This is a band from England. This is what they're like. You know, like Cliff Richards and Tommy Sands and Tommy. Those are the English rock stars. It was like, okay, well, this is what it's like to listen to a rock band from England. And then beyond that, I mean, I was really into the Everly Brothers.
Okay.
And the first thing I heard of theirs was Love, Love Me Do.
Yeah,
Love, Love Me Do.
Yeah.
And the first thing I thought was they kind of sound like the Everly Brothers in a horror movie.
Okay.
That was my first collection of them ever.
Right. Yeah.
And, you know, we went to a talent show that summer in the little town in Sweden where my dad grew up. And every single act was like an 18-year-old boy with 5 pounds of grease in his hair,
Yeah.
and his pants were too tight, and he was jumping around the stage trying to sing Hound Dog,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
or Don't Be
Yeah.
Cruel. And they didn't really know the words. It was hysterical.
Uh-huh.
You ain't nothing but a I mean, every single act was this like teenage boy running, you know, getting up there with or without a guitar, jumping around the stage like a jackrabbit.
Right.
Little did we know it was all soon to be swept away by bangs and
Right.
yeah,
Beetle boots.
yeah, Beetle boots and
Yeah.
collarless
Did
jackets.
you ever get to see the Beatles?
No, I met
concert?
John Lennon in 1969.
In what
I-
capacity?
My brother and I went to one of their last concerts
Wow.
in Seattle. Yeah,
Wow.
it was on his birthday,
Wow.
and they did 2 shows in Seattle on the 25th of August, which was his
Wow.
birthday in '66. And the night show sold out, but the afternoon show didn't. So my
Wow.
parents bought tickets for me and my brother and a couple of our neighborhood kids, and we went up there, and you couldn't hear a thing.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you what their set list was.
Yeah.
You couldn't hear a goddamn thing at all. But who cares?
Well, is
Right.
that because people were screaming so much?
Yes, yes. I mean, the sound systems weren't that good either. It took a couple of years.
Right.
You know, I saw Elton John about 6 years later in the same venue, and he was fabulous, and you could hear him great. But
Yeah.
but it
Well,
was because people were screaming. But
Yeah,
and then they played San Francisco and said, "That's it. We're
yeah,
done.
Yeah.
We're done. We're done in public." So
Yeah.
and because they had put out Revolver that same week.
Yeah.
And that music, their music was going in a direction where it would be really hard to replicate on stage anyway.
Yeah.
And nobody could hear them; they couldn't hear themselves, so it was
Yeah.
pointless.
But I
But
think
still.
I think the main reason, at least I'd like to think it, being an idealist, you know, they really wanted their next album to be amazing. And if you look at their schedule, they published a book of Beatles schedules. It's
Okay.
amazing, from like, you know, 62 to 70 or something. It's unbelievable how
Where they played? Is it-
everything they did, photo sessions,
Oh,
fittings for clothing,
yeah.
everything, take holidays, you know, it was amazing, an
Wow.
incredible amount of, and you know, that era that he's talking about right after they played San Francisco, all it says is working on Sgt. Pepper all year. The whole year,
Yeah.
all they did was record Sgt. Pepper, you know?
Wow.
And they were in love with the studio. They were in love with the amazing things that the studio could do. You know,
Yes.
there's a whole world there inside that tape recorder waiting to come out, a million worlds, you know? And I mean, that's what's so beautiful is they made this record that stands for all time as this kind of You know, it opened the door to a whole new era of preoccupation with studio production. It opened the door to
I'm sure it did.
You know, the rock and roll concept album. You know,
it was, yeah. It really. I remember that it being a concept album.
Yeah, and it really showed what people were capable of doing in the studio.
Where is it? Brian Wilson? Is that who for Beach Boys?
Beach Boys.
Yeah.
Where does he fit in as far as before, after the Beatles? Was he much after?
Kind of concurrent.
Yeah, when I first heard the Beatles in Sweden in the summer of '63, "I Get Around" was the #1 record everywhere.
Okay.
Everywhere. And I just couldn't believe those harmonies, like what they were doing with those harmonies.
Right.
I loved the Beach Boys. I had every record, you know. They were along a couple of years before the Beatles.
Okay.
And continued when they did Pet Sounds.
Yes.
A lot of people said that Brian Wilson was trying to prove that he was as good as Sgt. Pepper, you know. Pet Sounds was kind of like their Sgt. Pepper.
Right.
But yeah, Brian Wilson, I mean, you know, he was one of the greatest musical geniuses of the 20th century.
I think the Beatles were very aware of Brian Wilson's abilities too. I know they listened to Pet Sounds. I think John and Paul listened to it as soon as the album came out.
Yeah.
They had someone rush it to them, and they were just floored by it.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Well, they do that. Paul does that falsetto in Back in the USSR. And
oh yeah, that's a great.
There's this kind of Mike Love bass part, you know, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
You know. yeah. I think that they were the band before the Beatles.
Okay.
You know, when I was like in 6th grade, and there was this kid. I kind of felt stupid because he always knew more about the music business than I did, you know. I said, what is that name in parentheses on the record label underneath the song title? He said, that's the guy who wrote the song. Right. I went like, wow, what a concept, man. I went home and looked at all my records, you know, Brian Wilson. Wow, he wrote all these songs for the Beach Boys, right?
Yeah.
Then I said, like a week later, I said, this guy knows what he's talking about. You know, what does it say produced by? What does that mean? He said, well, that's the guy who's like in charge of everything in the studio. So I went home and looked at all my albums, Beach Boy albums, produced by Brian Wilson. You know, so Brian Wilson was like my first fucked up genius. Is it okay to say that?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. That describes Brian Wilson.
You know, he was my first like, you know, he plays bass guitar, sings this high part, amazing voice, writes all the songs. Well, some of them he wrote with Mike Love, but, you know, produces everything, you know. And this was even before I heard of the Beatles. This was before the Beatles ever came out, you know. And it's very funny because I was going with, not going with, but I mean, I was good friends with this girl, Kathy. We were only like 13, right? But I mean, we were real tight.
She was only 13.
Yeah, well, that's for another channel.
What was that song? 15. She was only 15.
She was only 15.
Okay, yeah. Who did that?
I don't remember now.
She was only 15. Yeah. Oh, I know who it was. It was Joe Walsh and that band. That band.
Yeah. Okay.
That band.
But anyway, so this girl Kathy, her mother worked for an insurance company. And they handled the Beach Boys in a whole bunch of their insurance. And so before the general public found out, I got to find out that Brian Wilson was really having mental problems.
Yes.
And he was going deaf in one ear.
Yeah.
And, you know, there were days when he wouldn't come out of his bedroom and all this.
I
found out about way long ago, you know. It came out later to the public, but I just thought, this guy's really crazy, and he's really a genius.
Yeah.
And he's my archetypal fucked up genius, you know, the misunderstood, reclusive, artistic genius character, you know.
Yeah.
And it just, with me, it just got worse from there. But it was, I don't know, whatever.
Well, that's okay. Well, since you are a musician yourself, we've never tried this before, but your guitar's right here. If you want to pick it up and play around a little bit with it, I'd appreciate it. I always really love listening to your music, and I could sit and listen to you all day long, which I have before. Yeah, I have before.
Well, I've done some music to some of the films you were in.
Well, that's right.
With,
You know, when Jennifer was producing all of the very, very low budget movies, the fact that she got those movies made for $30,000 and $40,000, and then got distribution from like reputable
theatrical
companies.
distribution, feature length movies for $30,000,
$40,000. Yeah. So Randy was very, very helpful as far as doing the music for it, and also you did the music, some music on The Victim, right? Which is the one that I directed. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a little story about that. I had a friend over at my house who is in film, and I was showing him my whole Pro Tools rig with, recording on the computer and samples and synthesizers and drum machines. And he said, "It's amazing that you can do all this stuff yourself." I said, "I'm not making enough money to hire anyone else."
Right.
Yeah, necessity is the mother, you know.
Yeah, right. The necessity of the mother. That's good. What kind of is this your favorite? How many? First of all, how many guitars do you have? I think I have about 15 that are functional and a couple more that need work.
Right. And what kind of a guitar is this?
This is a $200 guitar that was made in Vietnam.
Really?
Yeah. And one of my students lent it to me, and he said, "You want to buy it?"
Yeah.
And I might buy it. What I do lots of times, I put new pickups. Now, these are the pickups you were talking about.
Okay.
Pick up the sound. I might put new pickups on it. I might put new. I might have it refretted. The frets here, the metal frets that you press on.
Okay.
I could do a lot of stuff to it. I would probably end up paying $600, and it would be as good as a $3,000 guitar.
Oh, okay.
Or I might just leave it the way it is and give it back to him. I haven't decided. But for some reason, I just really fell in love with this guitar. It's very light and fairly small.
Uh-huh.
And it's something about it I just dig playing it. I don't know. A guitar is like, it's like karma. It's like, sometimes you sit down with a guitar and it's like, we knew each other in a past life. And then other times, wow.
Don't bring that up. Yeah, but it comes out anyway. Yeah.
Right, yeah. And then sometimes it's like a $3,000 Gibson ES335 with a flame top maple finish and, custom made pickups. It's like, I just don't get it playing this guitar. I'm just not getting any feeling from it. You can never tell.
Right.
They say that when Mike Bloomfield got the call from Bob Dylan to play with him, he was so excited, he just grabbed his guitar and got on the airplane in Chicago without any guitar case or anything. He just walked on the airplane with the guitar.
Right.
Went straight to the studio and plugged in and started playing.
Wow.
And that guitar would probably be worth $30,000 today, or more than that. The guitar that Dylan had around his neck when he got booed off the stage.
Yes, yeah.
Connecticut, wasn't it?
Yeah, the folk festival.
Yeah.
That sold recently at an auction for $990,000.
Wow. Newport, yeah.
Folk yeah, so, who can tell? Do you think you can pick up the amp and the voice?
Hopefully.
Can you hear that?
Yeah,
we've
never tried this before, so we'll just go with it.
Okay, I know you like this song, Don't Play the Blues When I Die.
Well, you're not on mic anymore, Dad, so don't even try to talk, because this is a song that Dad likes, that he requested that you play for the podcast.
Okay, cool. So much for requests. You may come from a red state, you may come from a blue. You may just won the lottery, ideas run around in you. You may be hustling your latest scam with the sheriff knocking on your door. Maybe you're straight, maybe you're gay, or maybe you're just not sure. But don't you cry, don't ask why. Don't play the blues when I play the blues when I die. You may think you're high, you may think you're low. You may just win a lot of lottery phases you don't know. You may wake from a beautiful dream with a noose around your throat, explaining all the wonderful things he'll do if the hangman will let you go. But don't you cry, don't ask why. Don't play the blues when I play the blues when I die. You may hate your daddy's name or despise your mother's birth when you bring back another uncle home and he beats you into the dirt. You may untie his bottle then and negotiate with hell till one more dream on 5-inch heels weaves another spell. But don't you cry, don't ask why. Don't play the blues when I play the blues when I die. I swear I'll go on wondering why without another thought in my head. Just the way I came into this world, lying in the same cold bed with the same sad angels singing. Yes, I remember you. You're the one with all the silver yesterdays that vanished in the blue. But don't you cry, don't ask why. Don't play the blues when I play the blues when I don't you cry, angels, don't ask why. Don't play the blues when I play the blues when I die. Thank you. It would be easier if I played one after another, and then you. But if you want them to put it to be in different parts,
it would be
of the
easier
show.
if you just played another one right now, because then I could rig the mic back up.
Yeah.
afterwards.
Okay.
So, yes. If you want to just play another one, and then I'll cut it into later in the show.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's better. Okay. You ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. What could be the wrong been done? Mama, what could be the wrong been done? You got me weaving in the morning, you're singing another man's song. Hey, wasn't I always good to you? Mama, didn't we do the hoochie coo? You got me weaving in the morning, what could be the wrong been done? Singing another man's song, kissing another man's song, singing another man's song. You got me weaving in the morning, what could be the wrong been done? Woke up in the morning, pain upside my head, trying to get it together, but I'm chugging it back to bed, stringing along, pretty mama, stringing along, pretty mama, you're singing that other man's song. Woke up at noon, stared at my spoon, trying to get well, but you're humming that other guy's tune, stringing along, pretty mama, stringing along, pretty mama, humming that other guy's tune. Woke up in the evening, pain upside my head, trying to get it together, but I'm trucking it back to bed, stringing along, pretty mama, stringing along, pretty mama, you're singing that other man's song. Said you never do me wrong, Mama, now you stay out all night long. You got me weaving in the morning, singing another man's song, singing another man's song, singing another man's song, singing another man's song, you're singing another man's song. You got me weaving in the morning, what could be the wrong been done? All right.
The thing that is, I guess there's something about music. It's like every actor wants to be a singer. Most singers want to be actors. And I can't. I'm just miserable when it comes to music. So when somebody can play it so well, I really appreciate it.
A man's got to know his limitations,
Yeah.
and mine is listening to music is about as far as I can go with it, and not perform it. But
Well, also, the thing that I find interesting about Randy playing too is that, Randy could like play anybody else's music.
Sure.
Like just play it. Like you want to hear Norwegian Wood, boom, he'll play it. You want to hear, like what was this person like? Yeah, request. Like he can play anything, absolutely anything. But he's a writer. Singing another man's song. It just, I really enjoy the creativity that goes into, because I can kind of mess around with a script and I can write a little bit and write dialogue or whatever. But, the idea of writing a song is it just doesn't come to me. It's like me trying to write poetry or something. It's just like, I don't know where that comes from. Where do you think it comes from, Randy? I mean, just you've been doing it for a long time.
I could say a whole lot of stuff about that because I love pondering, what creativity is. I love thinking about it. And Segovia, Andre Segovia, the great classical guitarist, he wrote out all the scales, major and minor scales in every key for guitarists to practice. And he wrote this little introduction to the scales. And he says, if you practice these scales diligently every day, you will attain mastery of the fingerboard. However, music springs from the innate excellence of the human spirit.
Wow.
And that's just, I got those scales when I was like 17, and I can't put that out of my head. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, John Lennon said, talent is just thinking you can do something,
Well,
the guy who,
that's coming from a guy who can just do things. So,
that's the thing is that he had, I can't remember his name. One of the guys who started Rolling Stone magazine was interviewing Lennon in the early 70s.
Jan Wenner or one of the
it was. I think it was John Wenner. Yeah. And he said, "There's a great book. It's called Lennon Remembers." It was put into a book. These interviews. Yeah. And he says to Lennon, "How does it feel to be in possession of such enormous talent?" And Lennon says, "There's no such thing as talent. Talent is just thinking you can do something."
Right.
And it really stuck in my head because I've never been able to figure out what talent is. Like somebody says he's very talented, it just, I don't get it, And I would say that quote to my students a lot when I taught guitar because it just seemed to inspire me.
Right.
And then I had this adult student once. I said, Lennon said, talent is just thinking you could do something. She said, well, that's easy for him to say.
Yeah.
And I never thought of that before. And, I've taught really terrible guitar students. And I never,
think I might have been one of them.
I would never connect it with any specific, take the Fifth Amendment on that. I refuse to answer that. No, you were so much fun to teach, though. I had such a great time with you.
Yeah, we had fun.
Anytime you want a lesson, I'll give you another lesson.
Okay.
I never charge you. It's just,
but
what was I going to say? Yeah, so it occurred to me, when this person said that's easy for John Lennon to say, when I was a kid and we were playing, no one ever said, I met this terrible guitar player, let's go over to his house and jam.
Right.
I just didn't meet people who had trouble playing guitar until I started teaching.
Right. Right.
And I don't know what it is. If I were to teach songwriting, I've taught songwriting. I can teach music. I can teach you scales and chords and flats and sharps and all these things, right?
Yeah.
But I can't really teach anybody how to write a song.
Of course.
I would say there's three things. The first thing is assemble everything you need. The guitar or a piano or whatever you got, tape recorder, computer, whatever, wine, weed, whatever you need. Okay, so you assemble everything you need. That's the first thing. The second thing is don't do anything else. Don't call anybody. Don't go out shopping. Don't,
right.
turn
Don't
the
have
TV on. Just
yeah.
don't do anything else.
Right.
And the third thing is pray for a miracle. Pray for a miracle. And I always, like my bag here, I always have a notebook in there. I always have pencils in there. That first song I played for you, I don't feel like I played it very well, but don't play the blues when I die. That phrase just popped into my head out of nowhere. That's got to be a song.
Yeah.
Things like that happen. All of a sudden, it's just, you just can't. The important thing is not to let go of it. The important thing is to write it down.
Right.
I use my notepad on my iPhone.
Okay.
Sometimes I do use the little piddly shit recorder on the iPhone. I just put it in the record and jot down a guitar idea and save it, I go back and listen to stuff afterwards, but it's just a question of.
Were you writing songs when you were in your early 20s?
I wrote my first song when I was 14. 13. John F. Kennedy was assassinated. I wrote my very first song right after John F. Kennedy was assassinated.
Okay. All right.
And it was awful.
Did it have anything to do with his assassination?
Yeah, it was like a tribute to John Kennedy.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
It was. And it was right before that that I heard Dylan for the first time himself. We had this little folky group at school, little nerdy outcast kids. We'd bring our acoustic guitars and struggle through these Pete Seeger songs and stuff. And find an empty classroom after school. And again, like I was looking at who wrote songs now that I knew that name was the songwriter on the label, right? And, Peter, Paul, and Mary, Dylan had the perfect career because Peter, Paul, and Mary jumped right into the middle of the folk scene with Puff the Magic Dragon, which Dylan didn't write, Dylan didn't write that song. But I mean, it was this monster hit. You heard it everywhere.
Yeah.
And, with one record, Peter, Paul, and Mary just became the darlings of the folk scene.
Right.
Up until then, I would say that folk thing, Kingston Trio, that whole thing, which I loved when I was like 11, 12 years old.
We had Kingston Trio.
Yeah. All those groups,
when I was a kid. Yeah.
It was very collegiate.
Yes, yes.
And Peter, Paul, and Mary, they were like from Greenwich Village or something.
Right.
I mean, they were deep.
Right.
They were, I remember staring at their first album cover thinking, those guys don't live with their parents. They've got beards, the guys. And that girl is so gorgeous.
Oh, yeah. They had hit songs, too, on AM radio.
They were really, really
If I Had a Hammer was a hit song in my generation. Yeah.
That's right. Well, here's the thing. So they had this monster hit with Puff, and then they had 3 monster hits after that were all written by Bob Dylan. Don't Think Twice, It's All Right, The Times They Are A-Changing, and Blowing in the Wind.
Yeah.
And it's like, who's this guy, Bob Dylan? We couldn't even find any records or pictures of him or anything, And one day in the fall of 63, this would have been, I came to school, my friend Greg, who's part of this nerdy little folk group, he said, I found a Bob Dylan album. I finally found a Bob Dylan album. I said, what's it like? He said, I hate it. I hate it. He doesn't sing on key. He doesn't count to 4 when he plays a bar of music. His guitar is all wiggly and everything. It's terrible because we thought folk music was like the Kingston Trio.
Yeah.
You had to have a crew cut, tight white pants, penny loafers, and tell slightly dirty jokes in between songs, So I go over to his house and he drops the needle on Dylan's version of Blowing in the Wind. Ching, ching, a ching. How many roads must a man? And he goes, see? And there's this awkward pause between us. And I didn't think I liked it or anything. I didn't know what to think. I just went, can I borrow this album? And, I took it home and I listened to the whole album over and over and over and over. And I didn't know why. And I think that deep down inside, I thought, this guy couldn't possibly be trying to be rich and famous.
Right.
I mean, look at him, listen to him. And so there was this sense that he wasn't doing what he was doing for me. He was doing it for himself. Right. He was like an artist, a real artist with real vision. He wasn't even smiling, on the album cover. It wasn't like, we're here to entertain you.
Right.
It was just like, if you want to listen. I don't give a shit. I'm going to play my guitar and sing. That's the way he came off. And yeah, he changed the world.
Right.
He changed everything with that attitude, with
Right.
that whole thing about him.
Yeah.
And I loved his voice and his guitar. You know, an awful lot of people say, well, I love the way he writes songs, but I don't
I
necessarily
loved
like it.
his voice too. I got to see him and the
Yeah.
band
Yeah,
toured
wow.
together in '73, that Before the Flood tour,
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
would to hear him sing Just Like a Woman,
Yeah.
or I mean, God,
Knocking on Heaven's Door.
heartbreaking.
His
Yeah,
voice is really great in that
yeah,
song.
yeah.
Boy, how many
Or
covers have been done of that?
I
and Michael and
know.
Yeah.
I, when we were first roommates, used to listen to Blood on the Tracks quite a bit.
Yeah, that's one of the real great ones.
Oh, it is, yeah, just absolutely fundamental to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I saw him the first tour he did when he went electric. It
Hmm.
was like 65 or 66, I guess.
Oh yeah,
And
it
he
would be.
had, it was a big deal in Chicago because Mike Bloomfield was a Chicago guy and he was playing guitar with him. You know, and, Mike Bloomfield was like a god to me. He was like,
Yeah.
he made it okay to be a young white guy and play the blues, you know. And but he came out and did his guitar and voice the first set with his harmonica, and then he took a break and they opened the drapes and there was the piano, organ, guitar, bass, drums, amplifiers, and some people booed and some people cheered and
Yeah.
he did his set, Highway 61 Revisited.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you see
Yeah.
the movie, the recent movie?
I did, yeah. I
How would
liked
you
it a
think of
lot.
it? I got to see it.
Yeah. The only one thing about it, I mean, you can't tell everything in 2 hours. You know, you're going to do anything by
Yeah.
even. I mean, it's like basically, I guess, about 5 years of his life. It starts
Uh-huh.
as soon as he arrives in New York, and it ends not too long after he gets booed off the stage at Newport. But
Right.
the one thing that kind of bothered me was it looked like he left Susie Liotta for Joan Baez. Susie Liotta was his girlfriend before he ever made it famous. She's on the cover of the Freewheeling Bob Dylan album with him, that second album he did.
Yeah.
And she just died recently. She wrote a book, which I'm reading now, her memoirs of Dylan and everything. But she got sick of the notoriety and the popularity and the craziness. When he was a folk star, she could handle it. But when he plugged into an electric and became this
Rock star.
yeah, she just decided to let go of it and left him. But it kind of makes it look like he left her for Joan Baez in the film. And in reality, Dylan's relationship with Joan Baez was very complex. There were times when they were bona fide lovers, and then there were times when they were just friends, and then there were times when they lived together and they weren't lovers. But they did show to some degree that Baez was a star before Dylan, and she helped him out a lot. She'd have him up on stage and kind of introduced this weird geeky guy to these folk enthusiasts, and he kind of split from her when he went electric too. She was kind of resentful that he didn't kind of do the same thing with her that she did with him when he started selling more records than her, and he kind of. I think it's just because he was really trying to push his previous life behind. He was trying to really show people that he wasn't a folkie anymore.
Yeah.
And she was part of that.
Randy, we have kind of come to our.
Oh.
I know. And here's the thing: that when you're a guest on a podcast, and it happens, it's happened to me all the time. Was like when the host, who I guess is me, says, "Well, this is about how long we go. Thank you very much." There's like a real it's like, oh, what did I do wrong? You didn't do any. You didn't do any.
Nobody have to shell out $5 pay to play, right?
Yeah, you have to come back, and your knowledge of music is just so fascinating. I could listen to you like over and over and over again. But I appreciate you. Go ahead, Jim.
We barely scratched the surface.
Oh,
of,
I know.
things I would have liked talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what, Jim? Next time, fucking ask some ask some questions. There'll be like a moment where Randy will stop talking, or our guest will stop talking, and I'll give it a 1 or a 2 beat, waiting for you to say something. And go like, I'd better fucking say something because Jim's got nothing. But thank you for coming in, Randy. Thank you for playing. And
thank you.
I like I said, I always love to have you around, and appreciate it. Yeah,
we should get together more often.
I know.
I miss our guitar lessons, regardless of how well you play. We just had such a great time talking and stuff. And, and you look really good with a guitar, by the way.
We gotta have the.
You do. You're just.
Let's get a picture of that.
That's the thing about actors who want to be rock stars is they look much better at being rock stars than we do. We're just kind of picking our nose, wearing shorts. Whatever. But it's great meeting you too, Jim.
Oh, it's really nice talking to you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.